African American leaders during the Progressive Era. There were many challenges that African Americans faced during this time period, including how should they react to Jim Crow and segregation? What should they do about the KKK? How should people be educated? What's the best kind of education? And should the focus be on getting ahead economically or gaining their civil rights? We're going to explore two leaders and two different philosophies, Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. Booker T. Washington was born a slave in 1856 in Virginia. He attended the Hampton Institute in Virginia, which was a trade school for learning sort of manual labor jobs, but he trained as a teacher. He believed that education and especially jobs would raise African Americans to equality, and he founded the Tuskegee Institute in 1881. Tuskegee was primarily a technical or a trade school. So a technical or trade school, or what used to be called an industrial school, focused on practical job trainings. So it would be similar to what you could study at the Chester County Technical High School. Washington believed in economic progress first, then social progress. So some of the jobs that you could train for at Tuskegee Institute would include baker, bookkeeper, bricklayer, carpenters, cooks, nannies, seamstress, tailor, teacher. And to help African Americans in business, Washington founded the National Negro Business League in 1900. A speech that Washington gave in 1895 summed up his philosophy. In all things that are purely social, we can be as separate as the fingers, yet one as the hand, in all things essential to mutual progress. And he was basically saying, ignore racism and accept segregation for now while gaining economic success. This became known as the Atlanta Compromise because the speech was given in Atlanta and compromised because it seemed like Booker T. Washington was compromising with segregation. A lot of white people liked Washington. He seemed to agree with that separate but equal philosophy. Washington was the first African American to be invited to have dinner at the White House, and he had dinner with Teddy Roosevelt. And you can see that in this picture with Washington on the left, Roosevelt on the right, and look who's in the picture in the background looking over them, Abraham Lincoln, and with the tablecloth labeled equality. And this is the kind of print that African Americans might purchase and put in their homes. Nevertheless, the fact that Washington, a black man, was invited to dinner at the White House to dine with a white person made some whites angry. W.E.B. Du Bois came from a completely different background. He was born in 1868 in Massachusetts and experienced very little in the way of discrimination in his early life. He was educated at Fisk University, which was an all-black college, and then Harvard University, where he was the first African American to earn a PhD there. And he went on to found the NAACP. Du Bois dedicated his life to the pursuit of civil rights and social equality for African Americans. Du Bois didn't think manual labor jobs that Washington was promoting would earn African Americans respect from white people. He believed that an academic or college education would raise African American status by creating a sort of what he called a talented tenth of leaders. So that would include jobs like accountants, architects, also bookkeepers, but dentists, doctors, engineers, lawyers, nurse, teacher, but also college professors. Du Bois thought Washington was much too accommodating to whites. He believed in what he called persistent, unceasing agitation. And agitation means to shake things up. He said that African Americans would have to fight for their equality, and he had three demands: the freedom to vote, the end to discrimination, and the end to segregation. Remember, even though African Americans have the right to vote from the 15th Amendment, the poll tax and the literacy test and fear of the KKK was preventing them from actually voting in the South. To further his goals, Du Bois founded the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP, in 1909 to work towards those goals. Many whites did not like Du Bois. He was considered radical. He upset the status quo, he challenged people's beliefs, and he was not willing to wait for change like Washington. Furthermore, Du Bois influenced and mentored a new generation of civil rights leaders, people like Philip Randolph, Bayard Rustin, Martin Luther King, Roy Wilkins, Thurgood Marshall. Interesting. Booker T. Washington did a lot of fundraising with white philanthropists like Andrew Carnegie, but secretly gave his own money to fund legal challenges to Jim Crow laws in the South. W.E.B. Du Bois died the day before the March on Washington, where his protege Martin Luther King gave his iconic I Have a Dream speech.